early on in the global war, particularly in Iraq, I mean, the operational tempo was probably higher than it's ever been for any organization on the planet, and maybe higher than it'll ever be again. Very golden opportunity there. So we were going out, and again, this is just me as a new guy at Team 8. We were going out 3 to 4 times a week for 6 months. Yeah, but there would be other opportunities on deployments where it wasn't like that, and the operations became more deliberate, the more strategic, more scrutinized, and more political. And sometimes they're not in declared theaters of war per se. And in those cases, there's much more of a review process that's required, rightfully so, all the way up the chain. And so, I'd walk away from those deployments with, maybe 10 operations under my belt. So it could vary quite a bit.
Yeah, and your operations are different in the terms of, they're called national missions, like this president would have to sign off on your missions, right?
Not always, but if there was a presidentially assigned mission, it would go, to 1 or 2 places, and that was one of them.
Yeah. The ironic thing is, your unit, originally called SEAL Team 6, it was designed to do BVSS, right? Like high-risk hostage rescue at sea.
Yes.
That mission does not come about often.
It hasn't come very often, yes. And particularly with the, the original mandate of, cruise liners, it has never come. But there's been some pretty widely publicized events that have happened at sea over the years, and so it's not out of the realm of possible, but yeah, you're right, it's not very common.
Was the closest one that incident, Achille Laura, I believe it was?
Yeah, like right at the outset of the commissioning.
Yeah.
There's been other large vessels for sure, but I think that's the only one, to my knowledge, that we was almost launched on as far as cruise liner.
In terms of piracy at sea, of course it was the Captain Phillips mission, but anything like a BVSS involving pirates or terrorists at sea?
Yeah, there's a few less widely publicized, and I can't go into much detail on those at all. But it was all around that same time frame. There was kind of a heyday for piracy off the coast there, for which you were a part of.
Right.
And I think the deterrents that we had put in place worked, and they kind of figured out that wasn't a sustainable model for them anymore, and they stopped. They kind of cut it out. But for that period of time, there was a good amount of operations going on.
Actually, one of the operations, I think it was your buddies out there. So I was out there in 2009 to 2010. I did 2 back-to-back deployments. We were staged on a Korean destroyer, and we did a lot of ops back then because that's when piracy was like the shit. I did a few missions out there. One of them was a hostage rescue involving Yemeni hostages. But in that AO, I think DEVGRU went on a yacht and took down some pirates and rescued hostages, and they had a knife kill. Did you hear about that one?
I do know the incident you're referring to, but unfortunately I can't really talk much about that one.
Yeah, we heard it. It was over comms, like, because we were all part of the same task force, and that rumor just like spread like wildfire within the ship, and especially in our community because there were 30 SEALs on board the ship, and some Master Chief came up to me and was like, "Hey LT, dude, some guy got a knife kill on a boarding." I'm like, "No, that can't be it." But yeah, it happened. Holy shit!
Confirm or deny.
But it's cool. Our big operation. So I wasn't part of this one because I was back at Korea at the time. This was back in 2011-ish, maybe. Yeah, 2011. So I was getting ready for US Buds, which is why I wasn't on deployment at the time.
Yeah.
And there was this huge incident involving a Korean vessel, a Korean tanker. So big Korean tanker, 21 hostages, 13 pirates. Difficult operation.
Yeah, that's a hard problem.
But when this mission came down on us, on our unit, we're like, oh shit, this is the mission. This is what we were designed to do, and this is a dream come true. And we executed the mission very well. It was a great success. All hostages saved. None of our guys got hurt, and 13 pirates. 8 were killed, 5 were captured. So it's like the best outcome possible. But the captain of the ship was shot in the stomach. Fortunately, he lived. He's all right now. But besides that, yeah, it was a very successful operation.
Yeah, it's impressive.
Yeah.
And we've talked a little bit about that. Not a lot of operations out there that can be more difficult than boarding a ship, particularly when
Yeah.
it's underway, full of opposition
Right.
and a lot of hostages to save. And so you guys demonstrated your capability there for sure for the entire world to see. Those guys have a lot to be proud of.
Yeah, it was good. But yeah, that was the highly publicized one. There were a few other ones, but that was the big one, especially because, you know, it was really Korean hostages that was involved in that mission.
Yeah.
The pirates that were captured, the 5 of them, they're in a Korean prison right now. And, you know, there was a documentary on this, and the pirates, yeah, they're really fat now. Which makes you believe that Korean prisons are pretty good.
Yeah, they're taking advantage of it, I guess.
Yeah. But that was like our big one. What mission to you is very, that made a real impact on your life? Like what mission is most memorable for you?
Yeah. My career was just marked by repeated mind-blowing experiences that completely altered the course of my life and changed my outlook on life and things. And it's kind of hard to put that to answer that question, you know, more specifically. I think, man, I've lost over 40 friends in the course of my career. A lot of guys injured, and those, you know, that I was a part of are some of the ones that really stick with me.
Right.
And that I think ultimately I've been able to provide, you know, I've been able to provide me with great perspective that I've used in my post-military life, particularly with the appreciation of life and just the gratitude for which I am, you know, for being an American citizen with guys like that are willing to take it to the limit. And it's made me a better father, a better partner, better human. The very last operation that I did, and I'll talk about it, but I won't go into certain detail.
Of course.
But it was really unique for me in that I was joined up with another squadron for this one. Wasn't my parent squadron. I had just finished a stint as a green team instructor, and I had a period of time before my guys needed me to come back to them.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to miss out on a combat deployment.
Right.
And so I joined up and asked to join up with another squadron, and the Master Chief approved. I went out and I did, you know, 4 months with these guys, and in the very last operation that I was able to be a part of, they put me in charge of 3 guys that were students of mine that year.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that had joined up with that squadron as new guys.
Oh, shit.
This was going to be their first operation as members of the team.
Right.
Yeah. So that in and of itself was powerful. You know, I invested my last year helping these guys get to a certain level and investing a lot of time and energy and really getting to know them on a personal and professional level. And to be given the opportunity to lead men in combat that you had just done that with was very unique.
Yeah,
very
yeah.
unique. I don't know if any other instances where that has happened.
Yeah, it's
really.
pretty rare, huh? Yeah.
And this was a big one. This was one of those presidentially directed missions, and it was a very difficult one. It included a really arduous insertion, which was opposed and contested. The target was in a very remote, unsupported area with no U.S. Reinforcements nearby, and we got into a really serious gunfight. And right at the outset, one of the team leaders for that squadron was killed, and he was one of the most beloved guys on that troop, And you know, a number of other guys were wounded pretty seriously during that engagement, but you know, my team, they performed flawlessly and bravely in the face of that, and that was special for me to be able to witness that and be a part of that.
Right.
See this troop work through that problem and overcome those obstacles in the face of that overwhelming enemy firepower at the time was just something that was unbelievable. It was one of those mind-bending experiences that I had. We ultimately were able to exfil everyone out of there without any additional casualties, and we succeeded in our objective. We inflicted heavy damage to the enemy and collected critical information that led to follow-on operations that were strategic in nature. But that is one that sticks with me. It was the last opportunity that I had to do something of that magnitude, and the way that it formed up was like something out of a dream that I'd had when I was a kid, you know. And it was just when I think about the things that I'm grateful for in my military service, that was one of them, you know, to be able to be a part of that.
Of course, right.
Yeah.
This was a HVT killer capture mission?
Yeah. A number of them in one location.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You know, when you said that the 3 students of yours, you know, brand new guys, they performed flawlessly, it proves why selection is so important.
Absolutely.
And the way you guys run Green Team, I mean, I think it's incredible. You know, I've read about it and I've heard about it, and I know guys that went through Green Team and also who didn't make it through. Some of them are classmates of mine, and they tell me about the process, and it's just incredible. And you being a former Green Team instructor, like, you have expectations about what you need from these students, because they're going to be people that are going to serve with you, right?
Yeah.
Now with Green Team, like, to be an instructor, is it by choice, or is it like a rotational thing, or how does it work? Or is it most guys, they want to go on combat deployment, they don't want to go to Green Team to be an instructor? I mean, how's it done?
Yeah. I'd say by and large, guys are resistant to go there.
Really?
Because you know, there's a commitment there of a number of years, you know, and guys don't want to leave their brothers, you know.
Yeah.
Particularly at that time when, you know, combat is ongoing. It's not so much that you don't want to miss the fun, it's just that, you know, your guys rely on you and you're a critical part of that team, and it hurts to be taken out of that and have that hole filled with someone else, right? And yeah, it was hard. I definitely went kicking and screaming into that position.
You didn't want to go?
I didn't want to go. Yeah, I did not want to go. But in hindsight, it was one of the most rewarding experiences I was able to have in my military career, and I'm very happy that they made me do it, you know. And it was incredible. You learn just as much from that role as a Green Team instructor as the students are.
Yeah.
I think that's why they have that rotation of guys through that process. It is a leadership milestone in a way to be able to go through that experience as an instructor cadre, because it's one thing to know how to perform a task. It's a whole nother beast to be able to understand how to teach it well and why we do it.
Right, of course.
And that's what Green Team enables you to do, is really meditate and get into the deep level of understanding of why we do even the smallest things.
Yeah.
Because you need to be able to explain that to the student.
Yeah, of course. So I wanted to talk to you about the kind of work that you're doing right now. I know you're doing very interesting work. We've been in contact, and yeah, you want to tell me about some of the things that you've been doing with your company, and you know, the private work that you've been taking on? Yeah,
sure. As you can attest, leaving a community is hard.
Yeah.
You know, one of the things that makes it hard is, you know, for a lot of veterans, not just guys in the SEAL teams or in the ROKSEALs or special operations in general, but it's that loss of a sense of purpose, you know, and that the sensation of doing something meaningful that's bigger than yourself, you know, and a lot of guys struggle with that. I've lost some friends to that struggle, actually, after leading entire successful careers full of combat. They would retire, and a couple guys didn't survive the transition.
Yeah.
And it was really challenging for me, you know, and important that I found that, and ultimately I sort of landed on continuing similar work. You know, I have certain talents, and there's things that I think I bring to the table, and a lot of those involve doing hard things in dangerous places, you know. So shortly after my transition, a lot of these plans and these thoughts were shared with a number of guys that I was colleagues with, and we started a company to that end. Multi-nation effort here. So I've got guys on the British side and some guys here in the US, Tier 1 special operators, interagency guys, and I really believe that the people that you keep yourself surrounded with, for me, it's one of the most critical pieces of being a fulfilled, happy human, you know.
Right.
And these guys are dudes that I would trust with my life, and I have.
Yeah.
So, you know, our game now is, again, it's finding unique spots on the globe where the U.S. military can apply its force for whatever reason, political or otherwise, where the interagency environment is restrictive and maybe not able to be utilized. And so there's another option there. You have like diplomacy, you have military, you have the interagency, and then you have what we do, you know, the fourth option, essentially. Mm-hmm. And so RYKER Defense prides itself on providing creative solutions for people that want to endeavor in these complex environments, whether it's a private business venture or an NGO effort or government related. If those particular avenues of approach aren't optimal, then we can have a conversation and help you get to the solution.
Yeah, that's it's really awesome that you're doing that kind of stuff. It's fairly new, that kind of field in Korea or in Asia, but I think that there could be a lot of opportunities in the future in this side of the world as well. As you know, we have a lot of threats here, you know, and North Korea is one of them, very unstable, and we'll see if, you know, obviously we're going to be doing a lot of training type of work out here, but yeah, in terms of some more specialized projects, I think there'll be a lot more to come.
Right.
So yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, I hope so. Yeah. And I think there's a lot of opportunity for collaboration between us and between your partners, and I'm excited to see how we can develop it.
Yeah, definitely. So you've been on a lot of combat operations, many deployments. I know my friends, some have not survived the transition from military to civilian, and some they're still in the military and you know, just didn't work out for them. Have you had problems with PTSD?
Yeah, I think if you'd have asked me this question a year or two ago, I probably would have still been in the mental space where I had a wall up on kind of answering that truthfully or honestly. But I've done a lot of work since then, and I can say that I have struggled with it at times, and it's strange in that it creeps up on you in ways that you might not completely understand. And it may be exhibited in behaviors that you really don't get.
Right.
But yeah, I have naturally, you know, given what I was exposed to, it would be odd if I didn't, you know. So I think anyone coming out of the an environment such as that needs to take an honest, holistic look at themselves afterwards, take some time to really dig deep and be honest with themselves about what they're feeling and what they're going through, because there is a fairly large stigma still. And from my perspective, that stigma was always rooted in, you know, I have such a great admiration for our fathers and grandfathers and great-grandfathers who went through so much in the Great Wars, and for the U.S. military in the Vietnam War and the Korean War as well.
Right.
And those guys didn't that phrase didn't even exist, you know, and they dealt with it in the best way they possibly could, and they didn't have the support network available to them. When I think about that and the level of trauma those guys went through relative to my own, it almost shames you, thinking like being able to identify yourself as being a victim of trauma, right?
Right.
I think a lot of guys in our position have a hard time with that because inevitably there's a diagnosis, there's a label,
Yeah.
right? And for the VA, there's like compensation for that. And so there can be a certain level of guilt with that, you know, thinking back on your forefathers who didn't have access to that, right? So I battled with that quite a bit. And I do continue to work through it.
Yeah. Everything's okay now.
I don't know what okay is, you know,
Yeah.
but I think it will. Those experiences will stay with me forever.
Right.
The key is the framing of them, and the gratitude that should emanate from those, which is where I sit now. Is again, even in those hard circumstances, watching good friends of you pass, being able to identify the beauty in that moment and that sacrifice, and the community and the purpose and the cause for which they passed away. I think that is a vehicle out of that darkness, and that I've been able to really lean on lately.
You know, the other day we were having dinner and we were talking about some of your operators, and one of the type of operators that you have is a K9.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just crazy that a K9 also feels, you know, trauma, you know, can feel the horrors of war. And you were talking about one of the dogs, how he was such a great operator. He's probably killed more than the assaulters, right? And there were times after his like 5th deployment, he would look at his shadow and start attacking his shadow.
Yeah.
Or attack livestock, or attack whatever. You would retire these dogs to a nice home, nice owner, big fields, and for some reason, they don't live very long. You know, that dog that you were talking about died within a year, right?
Yeah. He wasn't the only one that had died within a year. Yeah.
Yeah, but most of them died within 2 years after retirement. Yeah. And yeah, it's really unfortunate, but like you said, I think because these dogs, they've had a mission, you know, that's what they love to do. They love being part of the team. Now that they've transitioned to civilian life, it's like they can't really cope with it.
Yeah, it's so interesting, the parallels there, right?
Yeah.
It's like a microcosm of what the guys are experiencing too. Yeah, they are pack animals, you know.
Yeah.
And over the course of a military career for a working dog, they get to do things that most dogs don't get to do.
Yeah.
They fulfill some of those really primal urges that domesticated dogs never get to do anymore. And so I think that pack mentality really does get reinforced with them, and they become very attached and connected and protective of the guys, the team that they're working with. But inevitably, at some point, they need to be retired. And, you know, just like some guys, that detachment is too much for them.
Yeah. I liked how you talked about after you transitioned, you know, you had some things to deal with, but you found a company that you can pursue your mission. Like, I think guys like us, we have to have a mission. We have to have a meaningful life, right?
Yeah.
And so that's what I'm doing right now as well. And, you know, I think this will never stop, you know, until we die.
Absolutely.
Whatever that might be. It's always, we're looking for a mission, we're looking for a meaningful life, and we got to fulfill it, right?
Something bigger than yourself.
Yeah, yeah. Which, you know, brings me to think about things like Ukraine. Like, how do you feel about that? Think about Ukraine and what's going on, and, you know, any opportunities out there. What are you thinking?
There's a lot to talk about with Ukraine. I mean, we're sitting here at the end of January 2023, going on about a year of the conflict. And the thing that strikes me most right now is the shift in public sentiment toward the conflict. And yeah, maybe we can take the opportunity to kind of reinforce this for people from our perspective, but I don't want to speak for anyone else. I believe that conflict is a simple case of good and bad, good, right and wrong, good and evil. And though there are some complexities within that, it is the absolute duty of everyone who is able to help the Ukrainian people to get on board and stay the course, okay, and to fight the exhaustion and the complacency and the fatigue that come with a long protracted war, and ensure that the Ukrainian government is successful in defeating the Russian.
Yeah, I felt the same way when I went, and I don't know if you've heard, but like, oh man, at first when I went to Ukraine, the entire country was against me. It was bad. It was really bad.
Here in Korea, you mean?
Yeah, here in Korea. And you know, maybe that was because we had a different administration at the time, a different president. You know, he wasn't too keen on helping the war effort. So, you know, I was in Ukraine. I had to focus on my mission, but back at home, it was just a lot of shit going on. You know, with the news about, you know, there was a lot of defamation. There was a lot of like, it was weird because you would never think that your own country people would try to defame you. It almost sounded like Russian propaganda. And that's how bad it was, you know. And you kind of heard about it, about me dying. You know, that was in the news.
Yeah.
I was killed in an operation. I was killed in an airstrike. That was another one. And like I tried to flee to the Poland border, whatever. Yeah. I tried to play dead for a little bit. But that didn't really work out too well because, yeah. But when I got back, I'm still dealing with all this legal shit because, you know, I was charged with 4 different charges. You know, one was murder. You know, one was murder with an explosive weapon. One was waging a private war. The other one was passport violation.
Right.
So the first 3, lack of proof, not guilty, which is good. But still dealing with the last one. So I don't think they'll put me in prison. We'll see. But the good thing is the public is in my favor.
As well they should be.
Yeah. So like you said, I always said that, you know, the reason why I went was because I had a firm belief that this is a war between good and evil. And the Korean War, like, you know about the Korean War. In my eyes, South Korea won the war because we weren't totally invaded. You know, the North, they pushed us all the way down to Busan. We were able to get back up. And then eventually we had a ceasefire at the 30th parallel. And South Korea is one of the richest countries in the world. So how do we do that? One, the US forces, they were a huge help. And also not just the US, but many countries from the entire world helped the war effort. Yeah. And that's how we were able to push the communist forces back up to the north. And I don't forget that. And when Ukraine happened, you know, I didn't hesitate one bit. I went straight to the Ukrainian embassy. You know, I signed up, got my bags ready, bought a plane ticket, and just flew over to Ukraine. But yeah, it's really weird for me when Koreans say that war has nothing to do with us. I'm like, think about the Korean War. Think about our history. We didn't fight ourselves. The entire world helped. The entire world. Yeah, Ukraine was not one of the countries because, you know, they were, you know, part of the Soviet era at the time, but the entire world helped, and that's important to me.
Hell yeah, absolutely. Amen. I agree with you 100% on this, and it does pain me when, you know, I've got close friends even within the community that will that believe the sentiment of this isn't our war to fight.
Yeah.
Okay, and you know, I invite everyone who has that idea in their head to remember some of the atrocities in our history, in our classic response of, you know, never again will this happen, right? And we need to stand true to that. Okay, if we see aggression, unwanted aggression happening against a civilian, innocent population, it is everyone's responsibility to make sure that that is checked immediately and it never happens again. And so that response needs to be robust in nature. I would also invite everyone to think about the effects of Ukraine losing this war and the inevitable conflicts therein for the foreseeable future and on into, you know, our children's and grandchildren's lives. This conflict will have second and third order effects that are hard to measure, but I can assure you that if Russia were to have succeeded in invading and controlling the country of Ukraine and found itself on Polish borders with a NATO nation, the opportunity for this becoming our fight increases exponentially, right? And if they do succeed here, even if they don't completely control the country, but if they are able to succeed in any measure here, this is going to embolden not just them, but others in this sort of behavior. And again, this is not a world that I want my son growing up with. So when I think of this, the things that motivate me and others that are assisting with this effort, it's thinking about him. You know,
Right.
This is bigger than this year. This is bigger than the next decade. This is has wide implication, and it is our fight.
Yeah, I agree. Well, at least for now, Korea is somewhat supplying weapons to Ukraine. It wasn't like that in the previous administration, but yeah, it's going to, different countries and then eventually to Ukraine. So yeah, we'll see what happens. Hopefully the war will end soon, but yeah, I don't know if I'll be able to get back out there anytime soon, but we'll see. We'll see. So what are your future plans? What's your end goal, your end state?
I don't know if I have one. I like to shoot for the stars and land on the moon, so they say. Right now, we're doing a lot of work focused in Central and South America and certain parts of the Middle East. And again, it's focused on assisting people navigate these complex problems when they're butting heads against antagonist forces or guys that don't have their best interests in mind, maybe malicious, maybe criminal in nature, maybe other stuff. So that fulfills me. As long as I can continue to help people, I'm happy.
Good. Yeah. Hopefully down the road we'll get to do a project together.
Absolutely.
All right, man. I'm gonna hold you to it.
Please do.
All right. Thanks again.
Absolutely.
Appreciate
Thanks.
it. 네, 정말 훌륭한 친구입니다. 그냥 네이비실 아니라 데브그루 출신이었고 이번에 한국에서 정말 중요한 교육을 했습니다. 그래서 군 경찰 측에서 엄청 많은 도움이 됐다고 합니다. 나중에 또 섭외할 건데 그때 또 볼 수 있으면 좋겠습니다. 시청해 주셔서 감사합니다. ROKSEAL 이근대위였습니다.
Yeah, this is Adam with RYKER Defense. I want to thank the Korean people for their hospitality and ROKSEAL for the opportunity to help the armed forces and law enforcement of this beautiful country. Thank you.